Angelique from Variety, and I am thrilled to be part of the opening of AFI FEST presented by Audi, and I am here to introduce the cast and creatives behind Amazon Studios' I'm Your Woman. And now I would like to introduce everyone who's here joining me virtually this year for the festival. First up, we have director and writer Julia Hart.
Hi.
With writer and producer Jordan Horowitz.
Hello.
Also, my husband.
True.
Just, explain why we're in the Zoom together.
It's fair, you guys it's fair for you to be quarantining together.
It is okay. It is okay. Doctor's orders.
Our star and producer, Rachel Brosnahan.
Woo!
And our stars, Arinzé Kene and Marsha Stephanie Blake.
Woo!
I appreciate all of the excitement, everyone. We don't all have to be in the same room to be super pumped for this film. I know that the audience is so excited to finally get a look at this. Julia, I'll start with you. What does it mean to you to be debuting your film at AFI?
So I've been an LA resident for, 13 years now, and it is my adopted home. I love it here so much. Both of my babies were born here. I became a writer and a director here. It's a very special place to me, and AFI FEST is such a important staple in the Los Angeles film community. I've been going to it for years, and this is my first time having a movie be a part of it. So the fact that the first time I have a movie in AFI FEST for opening night is just a dream.
It's this wonderful film that is a throwback to the 70s, but also such a amazing portrayal of how boss women are all the time. It feels very contemporary. So Rachel, too, for you, as a producer on this film, what does this designation as opening night film mean to you?
I mean, it's huge. I'm in New York for the last 13 years, so I feel like I've always looked through the looking glass at AFI and all the amazing films and filmmakers that have premiered films there, that have come out of this festival. I'm pinching myself here alone in my Zoom box. Very weird, but very, very special. And I'm so grateful to have gotten the opportunity to work with this incredible team and to have this movie here. We are so excited.
Well, let's, start at the beginning. Where did this idea come from? Julia and Jordan, I know you guys worked on it for a while, and you wanted to have some homages to some great 70s films, but where'd you start?
So we're both fans of 70s crime dramas. It's one of my favorite genres. Some of my favorite films are 70s crime dramas, and as much as I love them, they never totally told my story as a woman and as a mother. And I love the idea of taking those incredible characters that are on the fringes of those films that have male protagonists and telling the woman's story within inside of that. And so I think it was early on, we had just become parents when we saw Thief for the first time, which is now one of our favorite movies.
Michael Mann's first feature.
His first feature. And there's a moment in that movie where Tuesday Weld goes on her own journey, and the movie stays with James Caan, and it's awesome, but I really wanted to see what happened to her, so we just decided to make that movie.
Yeah, something we like to do when we're developing movies, especially inside of genre, is instead of saying let's replace the male protagonist with a female, is what was traditionally the female role inside of these movies, and let's instead just shift our perspective and tell that story. So that's what we did here. We sort of moved the camera and said, okay, we're going to follow her as she drives away in that car and tell the story that happens after that happens. And obviously we took some liberties and made some changes, but
if you haven't seen Thief, please, the moment you finish I'm Your Woman, go watch it, because it's a masterpiece.
I love 40 years later, we're shilling for Thief. It's amazing.
Well, you kind of can't undersell the Thief connection here because it goes all the way to the title.
Yeah, indeed it does.
There's a line in Thief, Tuesday Weld says to James Caan, I'm your woman and you're my man. So
and we took the first part.
We took the woman part.
We took the woman part.
Well, I mean, it is kind of like that idea of we watch The Godfather and we always see those doors close on Kay, and now we're getting to see what happens to Jean instead. So, Rachel, for you, why did you want to play Jean?
I read the script. I was alone in a hotel room, and just I was so moved by Jean's story. It felt like a portrayal of a woman that I had never seen on screen before, especially in this genre. And I felt like I didn't understand her at all. And that was one of the most fascinating pieces of reading the script, and had the opportunity to sit down with Julia and talk about the project. And it was really after talking to Julia and hearing about the inspiration for the film, hearing about the kind of story that she wanted to tell and why she wanted to tell it. I was immediately in going, when can we start? And it was a fairly fast process actually from that point forward. I was already a fan of Julia's work, having seen Miss Stevens, and then shortly after Fast Color, and was just wanted to work with Julia to bring this woman and her story to life.
And then, of course, Jean, through her journey, meets Cal and Teri. And, I'm so curious. I'm actually going to start, Marsha Stephanie, with you, with Teri, because we see her in the trailer and we find out she's Cal's wife. But Teri's a lot more than just a wife in the film. And that's kind of what is so powerful about the story, is that all of the female characters have a lot more to do than just sit on the sidelines.
Absolutely. I remember when Rachel was the first one who told me about this film, and she said, I pitched you for something. And I was like, hey, that's sweet. And then when I read it, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is what you hope for, especially as a female artist, an actress who I've played a lot. These parts where I'm, the woman, the mom in trauma, or the mom who has the child who is either dealing with something heavy. And this was an opportunity to be the one who takes all the trauma and makes sense of it for herself, and then helps someone else to navigate it, right? And it's super empowering. And I love that both Jean and Teri have decided, at some point they have decided, okay, these are the cards we've been dealt, and we could either keep these cards or we could figure out what to do with them. And Teri's all about all right, listen, we're not going to dwell on what we've been given. Now we have to figure out how we're going to surmount it, how we're going to get past it, and how we're going to rescue our families in spite of these cards, right? So I just love that. I love that it was women who are actively trying to win and taking control of their own lives. And I hadn't played a part like that before, really. And so I appreciated just the fact that somehow Rachel associated me with that kind of woman. But then also that I met Julia, and it was just everything about this project for me was everything I want. I want to work with my friends. I always say that I want to work with my friends, and I don't just mean in a sappy, sweet way. I want to work with people who I respect in the business, who are amazing at the business, but who are also doing things. Those are the people I want to continuously work with. And I got the chance to do that. I met Julia and I loved her. And in spite of Jordan, I still love her. Yeah.
It's amazing how many times I've heard that. In spite of Jordan, you should make a t-shirt.
I should make a t-shirt.
You should make a t-shirt.
I love Jordan because I kind of feel like Jordan gets me. But I already love Rachel, and then I met Julia, and I think the whole time we were at lunch, we just talked about our kids and our lives. We barely talked about the film. And then in my mind, I was nervous about meeting Arinzé, because we had this amazing little cluster of women. It was me, Rachel, Julia, and then it was this Arinzé person from Britain. What? And then he comes in and he's fantastic too. He's just lovely to be around. And it's just I don't know if I actually answered your question. I will say,
I think you did.
What I will say is this was a dream job for me.
You did, and you also set up a very important question for me too. Arinzé, are you Team Jordan?
I mean, I'm Team Jordan just by being bald. He's my brother.
A+, baby. There's no hair.
I mean,
The most handsome men in the world are, let's be honest.
When you folded yourself into this I'm Your Woman family as the man in I'm Your Woman, how did you find your way?
you know what? It was a beautiful journey. Getting a script and reading it, finding it a page turner, written quite beautifully, and also sort of being quite curious about it, because if I was like, I've not read anything like this before, but I don't know why, it was kind of like, because you're so familiar with the world, with that world, the 70s, that kind of the crime that exists in that world. But I wasn't sure why I hadn't read anything like that before until I had that Zoom with Julia, and she spoke to me about, I guess, what she just said about these characters being characters from those crime movies, but like normally they're on the outside, they're on the perimeter, and you only get to see them for a handful of scenes. And now we're going with them, we're following them, and that just made sense to me. And that kind of, I think a lot of things fell into place. I thought it was beautiful how you get the thrill, and then you also Trojan horsed in is this beautiful story about being a parent, about being a mother, and that is definitely a tone that you do not get to see in these types of films. And then getting over to Pittsburgh, meeting the team, you're right, Marsha Stephanie, it felt like a family. It did feel like a family. I think everyone got on quite beautifully, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really cold, but it was a lot of fun.
It got really cold. Indeed, it got cold.
It did get
got
cold.
cold.
How much fun did you guys have getting to step back into the 70s, though? What was everyone's favorite part of getting to be back into that world? Because while the story does feel contemporary, you guys do get to hit that look a lot of ways. You get a disco scene, you get to have some bell bottoms if you want, you get some sequins, some furs. What was everyone's favorite part? Rachel, I'll start with you.
It's a tie between the cars and the fashion.
Oh.
When we were approving cars in pre-production, we were, I think, Julia, you and Jordan and I were like, the three of us were like, yeah, sitting in all the cars and like pushing all the buttons. But also likewise, I mean, Marsha Stephanie, that club scene that you mentioned, Angelique, I think the first time we ever saw each other's outfits, we were both just like, this is incredible. I feel like we've time traveled, and I'm so glad that those amazing outfits got some play. I mean, I've said this so many times, but I love period pieces because they give you the ability to completely transform. It's such a thrill to be able to look in a mirror and feel like you hardly recognize yourself. And it lets you dive deeper and deeper into a world that feels unfamiliar and into someone else's skin.
The thing that I loved about being in the 70s was the cars, but I was conflicted because I felt like I was going to kill someone. I swear to you, the cars were beautiful, but wow, so hard to drive. And I had never driven on the left side before. So it was a
You did great.
Fire.
You did so good.
You did a great job.
I didn't
Two
kill
thumbs
anyone.
up.
So
You do know there are some car chases in this film, so what was it like having to do those car chases in those giant cars? Marsha Stephanie.
Okay, so what you should know about me is I'm a New Yorker. So I'm not a natural driver by any means, but for some reason, I've always wanted a big car. Like I love old big cars, like the 70s cars. I love Pintos. I love the Ford F-150. I love a big car. And so I got to drive all my dream cars in this film. And when I had to do that car chase scene, they were so safe. They treated us like, like we were children, which basically I am. That's right. I was born yesterday. But they definitely took care of us. But there were times where I really had to be on the street driving a car that was a little bit not as automatic as you're used to.
Sure.
From 1970. And it's a lot bigger than I think it is. And I am trying to actually navigate, actual real streets, and there are people. And, a couple of times I thought I was going to hit the crew and stuff, but we took care of everything.
She did not.
For me, those nights were the
No crew members were harmed.
No crew members were harmed in filming of I'm Your Woman.
But it wasn't
One of my favorite things about period pieces is the lack of phones and what that does to time. I think you can spend more time with people and giving space for information to kind of settle in when people can't immediately communicate that information to other people. And that's one of my favorite things about making period pieces.
And watching period pieces.
And watching period
or watching
pieces.
old
It's
movies
just
or whatever.
the pace at which information flows is very different because of the lack of phones. And, you know, I say phones, but I really mean tiny computers. So that for me is always the most interesting thing of writing and then ultimately shooting period pieces is pace is just very different because of the way people communicate and the way information flows outwards.
And Julia, last but not least for you, and also getting to direct this period, getting to direct these car chases, getting to direct, you know, we clearly see there's some gunplay involved. Like, there's a lot going on here that, like we said, on screen too, oftentimes, where the women disappear from the narrative on screen. Women behind the scenes don't often get these shots.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, today, it's still not enough, but there are a lot more movies about women and a lot more movies made by women, but it's still not enough. And there are so many classic genres that we just didn't get to tell our story or tell the woman's story. And so for me, it was so thrilling and cool to get to direct that car chase, to get to have a badass woman driving the car in the car chase, to get to show the car chase from the woman's perspective. I think it's important for women to tell stories going forward, but also maybe to look backward a little bit and tell stories that should have been told that haven't been told yet.
Well, Arinzé was saying at the beginning, like the familiarity of this story. I mean, that's our hope, is that when we shift the gaze, right, when we look at the woman authentically in these movies, the hope is that it feels both familiar and accessible, like something you kind of feel like you've seen before, but then also incredibly fresh, incredibly distinctive, incredibly modern. It feels like something you haven't seen before. And so the idea that you can have those two things existing simultaneously, that familiar thing, but also that distinctive thing, I think that's something that I always aspire to in the stories that I tell.
Let's be honest. Technically speaking, every story has been told.
In some way or another.
It hasn't been told from every perspective.
That's right.
And we have a lot of perspectives to make up for, and a lot of amazing filmmakers and actors and artists who can make up for that.
That whole idea of the power of women, and particularly the power of mothers, being explored in this film. You know, you talk about like mothers being able to lift a car. I think that this is what that movie brings to me. So Julia, why did you want to explore that in this movie?
I think I saw Thief for the first time around the time that I became a mother. And the ideas that Michael Mann explores in that movie about motherhood are so powerful, and it really just spoke to me. And it's funny because like people have been having babies for millions of years. There shouldn't be anything particularly special about it. It's like the most everyday mundane thing that can happen. But at the same time, when it happens to you or someone you love, it feels like a total miracle. And like you're the first person to ever experience this miracle. But along with being a miracle, it's also something that throws you out of the life that you've known and the world that you've known and the way of living that you've gotten used to. And everything is different and everything is new and everything is scary. And that also sort of seemed to apply to the idea of finding out that your husband is a thief and maybe not exactly who you thought he was, and you have to go on the run and everything's new and everything's different and everything's uncertain and everything's scary. So like the themes of new motherhood seem to wrap up perfectly with the themes that are explored in crime dramas in general.
Rachel, Marsha, Stephanie, how did you guys relate to those themes?
Well, just the idea that we never get to see what these women go through, and if they have a child, how that informs each decision they make. And honestly, when I met Julia, a big part of me loving her was that she was a mom herself, and I'm a mom, and we were just like, we spent a lot of time, like I said, talking about our kids and like the uncertainty and how every single day you question every single decision you make. So can you imagine if you had to make these kinds of decisions? Like normally, like for me, you know, my decision is like, do I send my kid to school? Do I give her a healthy snack or like a Oreos, whatever, right? But like to actually have to decide what you're going to do with your life, and you're on the run, and if you're going to leave the father of your children because he is not right for your child, is like mind-blowing. And I love that it was being told by a mom, Julia, and that she was including me as a mom in the telling of it.
And Rachel, for you, you know, Jean has to spend all that time. There's a lot of time where it's just her and baby Harry as well. So, you know, what was it about this storyline that drew you in?
I'm not a human child mom. I have fur children, and it's not the same. But I, you know, the moms in my life, not excluding Marsha Stephanie and Julia, are some of the most powerful and empathetic and complete and emotionally and mentally intelligent people that I know. And we should all be learning a thing or two from the moms in our lives. And this was a kind of story about motherhood that I have never seen before. And as a woman who doesn't yet have children, but who has a lot of questions about what it means to be a woman in the world, and the expectations placed on women by the society around us, and the expectations placed on motherhood. I mean, I've even gotten a tiny glimpse into this world playing a fictional mother on television, the kind of mom shaming that exists. I mean, I just had never seen a story about a mother asking questions about motherhood and how it affected and shaped her identity in this way. And it feels important. There's a piece of this film that that for, you know, various reasons didn't quite make it in, but that I think you feel in the DNA of this movie, which was a piece of a conversation between Teri and Jean, where they talk about quiet women and all the quiet women that have gone through their journeys with motherhood silently, and how incredible it feels to be able to have a moment of connection where you can just talk about it and you can just be yourself within it for a moment and feel seen by someone who may have a very different experience than yours, but this piece, this special thing that connects you. And this one's for all the quiet women who have asked similar questions and maybe haven't seen themselves or their questions or their story represented this way. You know, who knows what my own journey with motherhood will be, but I found this story really inspiring and really important. And I hope that other people do too.
To piggyback on that a little bit, just because I feel like in this sort of current climate of what we've been dealing with all in this year, and with the Black Lives Matter movement, and just the idea that now we're going to elevate, all these companies came forward and said, we're going to elevate, we're going to have an inclusion policy, and we're going to elevate people of color, and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to give a shout out to Julia and Jordan, because I feel like they have maintained that for longer than it's been trendy. I remember I've watched 2 of their films now before I'm Your Woman. What I loved was that I watched Fast Color, and there's no reason that Fast Color is a Black family other than they wanted to make it a Black family. I feel like Julia and Jordan have stayed true to this idea that there are people of color who can play who can be the leads in their films, who can be great artists, and there doesn't really need to be an explanation about it. It's not like they're trying to make some big statement. It just is what it is. Again, we shot this in 2019. This is before, you know, everybody was talking the game. They've been walking the walk a long, you know, before everyone started talking about it. So I just want to say, in terms of, it's a great film. It's revolutionary in terms of who's directing it and who's producing it, but also just how the story develops and who is a part of that story.
I assume when you say who's producing it, you mean Rachel. It's not certainly not revolutionary that a white guy is producing a movie. Just FYI.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we're just doing what all white creators should be doing, which is making the world look like what it really looks like. But thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Julia, for really meaning that. Like, I really feel like I have a bullshit monitor. Oh, can I say that?
It's fine. It's fine. It's digital. It's all good.
But
It's 2020.
yeah, I feel like
Fine.
when I met you, I saw that you speak your word and you speak truth to power. And we just need more people like you at the table.
That's such an important point to make. And I think it really does come through in the film as well, is that all of these characters don't necessarily have to be who they are, but it adds so many layers, in particular for Cal and Teri to be Black. And I will second that, and thank you for making that move. Rachel, as that third producer, what does it mean to have this film be your feature producing debut?
I couldn't be more proud to have any part of this movie, let alone to have been invited into this very special partnership that Julia and Jordan have. They didn't need me to make this movie great. And they invited me into this space that, as writers and directors, it's a very vulnerable space. And I have learned so much from working on this film alongside them. And I'm still kind of processing, I feel like, everything that I've learned, but all I know is that I'm a better producer for it, and will take this experience into every single project moving forward. It's been such a treat and such a gift, and I'm still, like I said, I think I said this already, but I'm still pinching myself. I'm still here alone. One martini can.
Well, and I think a lot of people know that Rachel is an incredibly talented actress, but she is. And I'm really not just saying this, like, she is such a good producer, and she and Jordan were just such a dream team for me as a director. And I just hope we get to do it again.
Me too. All of us. Let's make another one, guys.
Yes, I'm your woman too.
I'm your woman too.
I'm your woman again.
I'm your Zoomin.
I'm your other woman.
Your other woman.
I'm your woman to more women.
Yes, before we make I'm Your Woman 2, can we let everyone see I'm Your Woman 1 first?
Good idea. Good idea.
Probably the best idea.
On that note, thank you all to the audience so much for joining us for this Q&A. I know you guys are ready to watch the film. We'll have so many questions afterwards. DM everybody on this chat. But I would love for you guys to all introduce the film with me, if you will. I'm normally supposed to do it myself, but I think this should be a group project, okay? All right, I'm going to count us all in on a 1, 2, 3. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3. And now,
The
world
premiere
of
I'm
I'm
Your
Your
Woman.
Woman.